Hello and welcome to the Watson Weekend. I am your host, Rick Watson.
Hi, it's Justin Lasetsky. We're here. It's another Friday. Fun Friday is what we like to call it.
It's always a fun Friday here. We're excited. And at the Watson Weekend, we are your go-to place for retail, technology, and e-commerce.
That's right. It's your weekly dose of medicine with just enough sugar to help it go down. Are we professionals, Rick?
I think we have solved that over and over. We are not professionals, and although the production gets better, I'm not sure if we do.
Our production quality, I think, helps buffer the fact that we are not journalists, and we'll own that every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? We do have a lot of help from folks like Elastic Path to bring this show to you. Elastic Path, if you're not aware, helps bring your unique commerce vision to life. They have flexible API-first composable commerce platform, pre-built solutions, a team that's dedicated to your success. They're proud to support companies like Astrac, like Vivrelle with advanced pricing, product data needs, and help accelerating time to market. So we really appreciate Elastic Path and their support to bring this fine program to you. And we are really excited to also welcome our guest, and we're going to share a little bit more about her after we get through the headline hangover. So it's a packed show today. Buckle up, guys. We're here for you as usual. And let us know where you're dialing in, phoning in, watching in from. And as always, pop questions in if you want to ask myself, Rick, or our guest a question.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're a live show, so we love questions, particularly for our guests. Donna's amazing. You guys will see it. I think at this point, it's now time for our headline hangover. First on our agenda is something you haven't seen covered very much, which Shopify is facing a data privacy lawsuit in California. This is kind of interesting because what the plaintiff is saying is that Shopify has dropped a cookie at checkout time, which then that client's data, that user's data, is then used to create a checkout profile later on, which sells, quote unquote, sells that user's data to other merchants, which sounds to me a little bit like they're talking about like the Shop Pay network.
Right. A little dicey. So unpack this a little bit. I mean, what's the severity? Do you think this is a real thing? Why isn't it getting the coverage it clearly deserves?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, there's not a ruling. I think it's just a lawsuit at this point. And so I think if it were a ruling, it would probably get more coverage. I do think it seems unlikely that this is going to affect Shopify in any serious way. I mean, what is Shopify doing exactly that everyone else isn't doing? Yeah. And I think that's part of Shopify's argument is like, look, I can't drop a cookie. Likely the user opted into a cookie. At some point, I mean, doesn't everyone accept all the cookies?
We're in a cookie loving world, right?
Cookie full. Is cookie full?
Yeah. We live and die by our cookies. So
anyway, so we're going to continue to track this here. Again, I'm not predicting it will now amount to anything, but we always look out for you here.
For sure, one to watch. And like you said, Shopify lawsuits typically are not in the same headline. So we'll move to our next story, which is there's some things happening in Shein and Shein. I'll still never say this right. I'm keep trying. But look, with the tariff situation, there's been a lot of conversation and probably acceleration of them shifting their businesses to Vietnam. There is a place called Shein Village, which is in China, because it's been so centrally located for where a lot of their goods get manufactured, especially in apparel. Someone apparently visited that village a couple of weeks ago, and it was like the tumbleweeds were rolling through, a little bit dark days. Maybe felt apocalyptic. The mood was glum. It said there was an interview with 4 different factory bosses who just said local orders were in a free fall of decline. especially as, Shein's just really trying to maneuver and work around this whole de minimis crackdown that's happening at the same time as the tariffs. So headwind city for Shein and the Village. Sounds like they're also putting a lot of pressure on these factories to relocate to Vietnam and asking how quickly they can move their manufacturing facilities, which at the same time, China is saying, you cannot go. We're not going to allow it. So a lot of push-pull that's happening there. Rick, do you feel like this all flushes out because, we're going to get to some conclusion or?
Yeah, I mean, look, meanwhile, it seems like China is not too happy about the fact that Shein is looking to repatriate its manufacturing base.
Yep.
And so there could be, I don't know if it's penalties or restrictions put on the company from that. At this point, is Jamie Salter just upset? Like Forever 21 is going down. He got Shein to invest in, ABG, Spark. And now because Shein was the future of manufacturing, and now, what's happening? And so is it the future of manufacturing? I think it's a question. I just saw a report this morning that Shein's prices have gone up by something like 150% since this tariff came in, which ironically matches the tariffs on China. It's like, it's like not exactly a mystery going on here. That checks out.
Yeah, that tracks. That's right. It's basically like it was in a Google Doc with their pricing, and they just did a formula, and then they re-pushed the new pricing out.
Yeah, exactly. Although I think you can just have AI do it now.
That's true, actually. Well, so more news actually related to the tariff situation. I'm getting 2021 flashbacks. I don't know if you are, Rick. The retail shortages are coming, or at least there is fear of them coming from a couple of retailers. We know executives from Home Depot, Walmart, and Target have descended down. They are getting they are taking over Mark Zuckerberg's permanent parking spot at the White House and, shoving him out and, looking for some FaceTime with the president to just kind of talk about and level set of the state of the situation. If you remember back in 2021, right, we had the COVID supply chain crisis, which ultimately led to, there was literally shortage of the shelves. There were runs on particular toys, electronics, and really what the forecast is saying is because of the depletion of orders, the fear of being hit with all these tariffs and not being able to pass on those prices to the consumer, people are just not making orders. And so there's this forecast and looking ahead of the fall to the holidays of empty shelves. Right. So the categories that they're talking about it's toys, low cost apparel, budget home goods. Is this a fear-mongering thing, Rick? Is this an alarmist thing, which we've been accused of before? Or is this reality?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the reality is a lot of brands and manufacturers are running scared a little bit right now. And regardless of that, there is a lot of speculation about what will happen. I think the administration, it seems like every day or two, changes the guidance on what's going to happen next. The most recent guidance I've heard in the last 48 hours, which could change by the time you're listening to this program, is that the Chinese tariffs could be cut in half again. And so instead of 150%, it could go to 50%, and then there'd be a different tier system. So I think the question is, if you could wait a week to place an order, why wouldn't you? Still, the supply chain is just that. It's a chain.
It's a downstream.
It's a downstream. It's like, so if there's a bubble and like a pause in the supply chain, then that does have effect on every link in that supply chain.
That's right.
And so that bubble will then travel downstream and hopefully not cause the bends. Like, why have I gone to a diver analogy? I'm not sure. I know. So we're gonna go there.
Ship sailing, that the ships really sail, but they're not sailing. It was a bad pun, so I left it. But somehow it still just came out of my mouth.
Yeah, we can go to inflation, inflating tires, inner tubes. Can we do that?
We sure can, because the trucking industry also is talking about the impact. Like you said, this has like so many downstream impacts, and what it ultimately, will do, it remains to be seen. You can't ignore the facts, right? There's already an 18.5% tariff on apparel and footwear imports. You add 145% on top of that, it's 160% or 200%, depending on the category of what that increase is, which, like you said, people are just going to wait it out. And the downstream impacts of that will relate to product, or will, create product shortages in some of these categories, because if you wait to place your orders, they can't produce in time to get the runs here. And anyways.
Yeah, so it's something we'll continue to monitor. I think Mr. Kaplan has some thoughts. This is week 2 of Mr. Kaplan being held hostage by tariffs, and so we're going to see what he has to say on the matter. I
can't steal his thunder either.
I can't wait to hear what he has to say this week. And so that's this story. The next story is I've actually been traveling this week. I had 2 separate events in Chicago. So I actually got into LaGuardia. I mean, I think you probably know the feeling, getting to LaGuardia at midnight, getting back to your apartment at 1 in the morning. And so I'm on the other end of that today. So I'm bringing the energy today. I'm bringing the energy.
Fresh, though. I'm just saying.
We're doing it live.
Yeah, if that was me, I have major bags. And you're looking good. You're looking fresh.
Yeah,
skin
we're looking sharp.
Yeah,
exactly. So the first event was the Mock Alliance Composable event, was at the Convene Center in Chicago. It was quite well attended. The numbers I heard is over 400 attendees, particularly in a time like this, where the U.S. is not in a vibe session. The U.S. is in a vibe-pression, something like that. There are no big tech projects happening. I mean, that really just seems to be the consensus across the board. If something is super, super important to the board of directors, and it is essential to your profitability that you do this project, it's happening. But otherwise, go to Europe to find the big projects. In case you hadn't noticed, the US is trying to separate itself from Europe. And as a result, Europe is maybe we need to invest in ourselves. That's actually creating a lot of new investment into Europe, who are trying to create new trading relationships, not rely as much on the United States. And so the number of new IT projects in Europe seems to be outpacing the US right now. And so that's something I saw at the Composable event. We spent some time, and you're going to see more about this. Vinny and I spent the day at Shopware's Partner Day. That was at a German restaurant in Beer Hall. So we actually did day drinking before our presentation, which was a lot of fun.
I bet that kind of brought a new spin on it.
Exactly. So look, the reality in the platform market is there are a lot of players out there, and B2B is a little bit of a toss-up right now. I mean, you have kind of the players that have owned the space for a while, namely Magento across the board and Salesforce, and then there are a whole number of new players, 4 or 5. Shopware is one of them. And so we talked about 2 different things. One is what we call speakeasy commerce, which is regulated categories in commerce. And I think you've had some, at least, brief flash in the pan experience with some of these categories.
Sure. Kind of in one now.
Exactly. So CBD, meaning one of them, alcohol, firearms, med tech, things like that. And we also talked about the role of private equity in manufacturers and distributors, particularly a lot of these forgotten categories of commerce. So look for more of that in the next couple of weeks. So we're excited about that too.
That's really exciting. Did you wear your lederhosen? I think the world deserves to know.
The last time it was Temu, and Temu is basically ixnay on the emute.
Oh, okay. All right. And so, and you were rash free though, so that was also a win, right?
Yeah, exactly. So no rashes. So there we go.
Yeah, well, thank you, Passport, for helping us bring the headline hangover your way. Really appreciate it. We have kept our guest waiting way too long, and I already told her I was a fangirl, was really looking forward to this episode. It's not every day you get to kind of talk to some of your favorite brands, and Vivrelle is definitely one of mine. So we're excited to bring Donna Felix to our show. She's the VP of Product and E-commerce at Vivrelle, which is a luxury fashion membership club, if you don't know. They have amazing inventory, luxury handbags, jewelry, and accessories. And in this role, she leads and executes the strategy for e-commerce, digital initiatives. So that crosses UX design, product photography, how you enhance the member experience through the platform, and internal tool development that helps just drive some of their proprietary initiatives that create this amazing member experience, which I personally get to experience on a monthly basis. So prior to Vivrelle, Donna held roles in product and growth marketing at a variety of different startups across B2B and B2C. So companies you've heard of, Glassdoor, Box, Cameo, and Tilt, which was acquired by Airbnb. Donna, so excited to have you on the show. Thank you for being with us.
Happy Friday. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for that great intro, and thanks for being a member.
Yeah, no, of course. Like I said, I'm going to try not to make this about me. But I do, really enjoy and love the experience. And so I think that it's very different than how a lot of companies approach the luxury space. And especially, with the membership club. So, I'd love to just kind of, as we dive in, just give some folks background on the company, what you guys do. And I think it'll help to look at talk about the space that you guys fill and the gap that you saw that kind of made all of this possible.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And yeah, before I get into it, I just wanted to say, hopefully the goal for this will be to get Rick to join. He's so excited. We already have you, Jess.
100%.
I'm very excited.
He needs a raffia bag too. That Prada raffia bag. Yeah, it'll look great on you.
I'll have to write this down.
You should at least get it for Rick.
How do I spell that?
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of how we got started, back in 2018, our co-founders are actually a husband and wife duo. Their names are Blake and Wayne Geffen. They were newlyweds, and they came up with the idea on their honeymoon. They, wrote a business plan down on a napkin. Blake loves luxury handbags. She has an amazing closet. If you follow us on Instagram or TikTok, you can see she does some day in the lives. But anyway, I think as a bride, she was really experiencing, you want to put together so many different outfits these days. It's not just the day of, it's like the bachelorette party and all the events around it. And you want a cool handbag to go with your outfit. And maybe you want it to be Prada, maybe you want it to be Saint Laurent. And I think, actually purchasing all of those bags is, oftentimes a barrier to entry for most consumers.
Yes.
So why not create a shared closet for members of this luxury club to access, on demand? And so the model that we've built is really, it's less transactional, and it's more of, you described, Jess, a membership club. We don't have return dates, and really whenever you join, you get access to an entire, virtual closet, as well as we have a really beautiful showroom in New York City where you can go in and hand select items as well. And we have, items ranging from, beautiful handbags to jewelry, as you mentioned, to diamonds, brands all the way from Hermes to some newer ones we added, like the Roe and Kate. So it's really fun. I love working here, and I was actually a member as well before I started working here. So happy to dive in.
Yeah, no, that's so great. I think it's interesting because in this notion of exclusivity and ownership, you are trying to democratize it somewhat because you're giving access to members in borrowing these high-end items. What are some of the complexities that come with that you had to solve from a tech perspective, or just from a hey, we're just going to buck the trend of how traditional, even luxury retailers approach this?
Yeah, I think in terms of trends, we all know how fast everything's changing right now. Fast fashion. I don't remember how you said Temu earlier, Rick, like Emu, Te, whatever. But anyway, just the fast fashion of it all and the rapidly changing trends. I think consumers value optionality. So at Vivrelle, we love to say you can have it all. Before Vivrelle, you couldn't really try before you wanted to buy something like these luxury goods. So, of course, you can walk into Saint Laurent and get a sense for a bag, but you couldn't carry it out. That would be stealing. You can't carry it through your day-to-day life and decide if you want to later on purchase it. Whereas with Vivrelle, you can do that. And like I mentioned, if you're a bride, maybe you splurge on one handbag, but now you can borrow up to 3 at a time. And so that's really, how we think about flipping modern luxury on its head. And then in terms of how we accomplish it, it has been such a journey. I would say our employees are just so brilliant, and you probably don't hear the word scrappy associated with luxury, but I mean, just the ways that we go above and beyond for our customers. We do things that don't scale. And then, I'll meet with our COO and we'll basically talk about, we really like, trying something like this out. How can we bring this to more customers? And then it's my team's job to either automate some of the process to make the internal team's job a little bit easier, or just figure out a way that we can have a little bit more reach with those magic moments.
Yeah. I'm thinking back to a podcast we had last year with Casey Golden, and she was telling us about luxury. And one of the things I took away from this is, like, in luxury, you have to do things that are not scalable, because it's about these relationships. It's about that wow experience that you have with a brand. One of the things I took from your comment, Donna, was the idea of the shared closet. I mean, tens of thousands of items, tens of thousands of members. How do you keep track of all of it?
That is the $1 million question. And it's something that I've learned a lot about as well. A lot of my background has been spent just in purely, digital roles. And these aren't just, physical products. These are luxury goods, highly, highly coveted items. And so we want to make sure that we can keep track of them. Like I said, our operations team and customer success teams are at the heart of our business. So any decision we make on the digital side is, highly talked about, and we figure out how we can basically make their lives easier. On the, keeping track of items front, serialization is really key. And actually this brings up Elastic Path a little bit. So we, right now in my closet, physically at my house that I'm borrowing from Vivrelle's shared closet, I have a red Chanel 22 tote, which is just this beautiful shiny tote. And we have more than one of those. So, we could have hundreds of them. We could have, a dozen of them, but we need to know which one does Donna actually have in her closet. And especially whenever we go to ship it out, and then whenever she returns it, we want to make sure that it's that exact same item. We have a database. We keep track of all of the, basically the condition of the items as well. Sure. And so serialization for us, whenever we were doing our process to pick an e-commerce provider, was really key. And it needed to be on the order level. It needed to be on the product child item level. And a lot of the other platforms we talked to, it was such an afterthought. I really thought I was hammering this into, the sales reps' brains. And then by the time we got to the, executive demos with my CEO and everyone sitting there, I was like, oh, by the way, what about serialization? Really throwing them a softball. And one salesperson said, oh, I think we can put that in a notes field. And so I was just clutching my pearls.
You're missing the point.
Absolutely not. So I would just say, we have every item on a serialized basis. And then we, of course, have some proprietary technology as well to make sure that whenever we're sending Donna that item, that she's sending back that exact bag. So
blink twice if you glue an air tag into the bag.
I don't know how that would work, because this shows that you don't know what raffia is, Rick, because raffia
that does not go with raffia, Rick.
Sorry, guys.
No. It's a good thought, though.
I'm catching up quickly.
Yeah.
We don't do any geolocation or tracking on our members. I think that then I would know, where Jess is at all times, which
that's right. She not only does she know where the bag is, she knows all my whereabouts. That's actually their strategy. That it's a new monetization model.
Exactly. Yeah. Jess, how was that Target run right before this?
Oh, it was so great. Got a lot of good new things. So I can attest to what you're talking about, Donna, because your customer service is amazing, and you can tell that there's a very real understanding of the condition of the bag. I was talking about a story before, in some of the pre-show that one of your team members has messaged me before to say, hey, we just want to make sure you know what you're getting. There is this tiny little mark here, and usually it's on the inner lining of the bag, which is just so detail oriented. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I get to rent this $5,000 bag or borrow this $5,000 bag. I can't believe it. Send it on, because no one's ever going to see that. But it just talks about the care that you all have. And so I just want to flag that, and also just talk about, the member experience and how much of that do you guys worry about automating versus you just know you have to own as part of being in this luxury space?
Yeah, it's a good question. It really is kind of a fine mix. I would say we obviously want to automate the parts that have the most friction for members.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, the checkout process, like,
Sure.
myself or a member of our customer service team, like, we shouldn't be there holding your hand during checkout
Mm-hmm.
because some of these bags, and Jess probably knows, it's like you're buying Taylor
They
Swift
go
tickets.
fast. Yeah.
Everyone wants the hot item at the
Yes.
same time, which our buying team, major credit to them, because they see the trends coming and they're like, it's summer, we need the raffia, or we need the beach totes. So we prepare for that as much as possible. But in terms of, automation and making sure that, like if you're getting a wish list notification, we want to make sure that you're automatically going to be put on the correct product page and queued up for checkout so that you have like the best chance of getting that bag. And then, in terms of doing things that don't scale, I would just say that, our customer service team, and, I usually sit in New York. I actually just moved to Chicago. I'm facing the customer service team, and in real time, they'll be like, hey, we have a member who XYZ. And so we're working real time on figuring out, is tech a barrier? Do we need to do something with this person's account? Can they help them out? So we're always trying to go above and beyond, and, we'll do an assist as needed. But really, I would say, the customer service is the heart of the company.
Yeah. And it sounds like the return experience is a badge of honor, also, like something that you all really crave and embrace, where most people are like, oh, they never want to see it. But it doesn't feel like that's a limitation. And can you talk about why that experience is important?
Yeah, I think it's super interesting because returns, as we all know in e-commerce, it's usually something that's like such a bad word, and you're not wanting to get returns. You don't want a high return rate. For us, if we're sending out a $10,000 handbag, it's not that it's necessarily a good thing. It's just, it's a net neutral, because the beautiful thing about our business model is that, like, and it inherently, the customer experience that follows is that we have no return dates. So we want to curate a sense of belonging to a club versus merely transacting on an e-commerce site. So we do have a minimum borrow window of 30 days. So you can't borrow a new one every day necessarily. But some customers swap their items at 30 days on the dot, and then others hold on to their bags for months or longer. People will use it as a try before you buy, and then we'll give them preferential pricing if they've been borrowing their bag for a while. So I think the optionality is really good for the customer. And then in terms of returns, we might have sent out a handbag, even a year ago, and then we'll get it back, and you'd be surprised how well people take care of our items too. I'm very glad we're not, I say we're not like in the dry cleaning business, like some of the other, you mentioned, your member Jess, and I know people love obviously those rental services. I think they're so great. But for us, we're really investing in high quality, durable goods that, also happen to appreciate with time, a lot of the case. So I think it's kind of a magical business model.
Yeah, it really is.
And I think as you think about your membership and keeping track of the items, different tiers of members can do different things. How do you parse that out? And then how do you keep track of what members can do and what they can't do, and incent members to do more?
Yeah, great question. So we have 4 tiers of membership. So our first tier is starts at $45 a month, and think of that as, like small leather goods or jewelry, basically under $1,000. The next tier is $119 a month. It's called Classique. It's basically our bread and butter tier. This is what most people are in. And you're getting access to any thing in our closet worth up to $4,000 MSRP. So that's, a lot of really great handbags. You're not going to necessarily get, like the really classic Chanel flap, the Birkin, that's in one of our higher tiers, Couture. And then we have one called Couture Plus, where you can borrow multiple items at a time. So we have a lot of different ways you can mix and match. You can also add that premier jewelry tier onto any of the other tiers. But Rick, to your question on how we keep track, I mean, that is the crux of my job. So basically, when you think about a regular, e-commerce site's product pages, they might have a couple states on there. Maybe, if it's in stock, you can click add to cart. Yeah. If it's not in stock, okay, let me know when it's back in stock. I'm trying to think of the exact number of states we have. I want to say it's upwards of 10. Because, Jess is a Classique member, but she's looking at a Couture bag. So we say, okay, Jess, upgrade if it's in stock, and then borrow it. So we have really a matrix of ways that people can interact with our product pages. And so any change we make sure, obviously, it's highly tested across a million different types of test accounts and all of that. But really personalization is like at the core of the membership. And because we have so many different tiers, we have to have our ducks in a row on that one. So the product page is always, you know, if we're making any changes, I hold my breath a little bit, but it usually works out.
Yeah. And you guys did something that you mentioned, you know, Rick has said this before, most retailers, e-commerce companies in general would rather like gnaw their arm off than replatform. And you all embrace that with Stride. So can you talk about that journey and things that you were looking for? I mean, you mentioned a little bit of, there were some very key kind of features or use cases, capabilities, things you needed to solve for, but what was that experience like? And I guess what was the tipping point too that said like the homegrown thing is just not going to work for us and serve us anymore?
Yeah, so it was pretty clear. I'll say this. So whenever I started, and when did I start? I guess 2020. Or 2021. About 15 employees, no tech team yet, and you know, Vivrelle already had a healthy amount of members. And I know I keep coming back to the customer experience and customer service team, but really, I don't know how they were operating on this just monolithic, very slow platform. You think of, in order to do their jobs, they had to have like 12 tabs open just to process a return. And so we were on Craft CMS, which just is not built for commerce. And so it was clear that we needed to unblock a lot of things internally so that we could keep that high level of customer experience, as well as just like grow. Like obviously we had a growth plan and we needed to be able to keep up. So the question of replatforming came about, and it was just kind of an obvious yes to everyone involved. And then in terms of requirements, we were, you know, looking at our current monolithic non-e-commerce system, and we're like, we don't want to go back to a monolith. So, you know, we looked at a lot of other platforms, but Elastic Path just really stood out. And I kind of call it like the Cheesecake Factory menu of e-commerce platforms, because whenever we talked to them, it was like, oh, this is another analogy to go with Cheesecake Factory, but they're okay with an island of misfit toys as well. So like, we don't fit into a regular e-commerce box. We couldn't just go with Shopify Plus. Returns, like I said, are a good thing for us. It's just we turn the business model on its head. And so for Elastic Path, like their composable commerce is built in such a way that it's building blocks. You can pick and choose if you want the appetizer, if you want 2 appetizers, that's your meal, that's fine. And so we were able to customize it in such a way that worked for our business model, and also still rely on best of breed apps to fit within that, and not just like kind of like do a slow creep back into that monolithic architecture. And so for us, you know, using Stripe is really big. We knew we wanted to do not only a back end replatforming, but also a front end as well, and along with a rebrand. And so we were going to rip out and get a completely new CMS, which we ended up going with Builder, which is completely headless, which works beautifully. So yeah, it was definitely an undertaking. But I think the aha moment was, you know, it was just kind of pretty obvious to everyone at the company, and we're all so happy now.
Oh, that's amazing. That's a lot of new tech though at one time.
So we did a 2-pronged approach. We did back end first, and then we were still using Craft CMS as just a CMS instead of running our back end as well. And then so we did that probably 6 months prior to doing the front end replatforming, which front end is when we got the new CMS up and running, and we also did an entirely new rebrand as well. So we, you know, rescanned pages, completely redesigned. So yeah, front end and back end kind of were married on that day, and everyone let out a sigh of relief.
Yeah, I'm sure. And look, obviously a replatform is something you don't want to do too often. You better be really sure what your customers want. How do you guys learn what your customers value most, and what have you learned that they value most in their experience?
Good question. I would say how we learn is really keeping our ear to the ground. And I'm not just saying that. Like I said, we are in constant communication. I have my Slack, you know, silenced right now, but I'm sure it's popping off in the customer service chat. So I can't forget what our customers want, because I'm constantly in the loop with what they want. No, I'm kidding about that. I'm kidding about, you know, constantly. Sometimes it's good things too. And then our showroom is actually connected to our offices. So we are in a beautiful space in Manhattan, and we have 2 floors. And basically the first floor of the space it basically looks like a rainbow Saks with every single brand you could ever imagine, member facing. And then you go to the next floor, and it's where all of our offices are, and we do all of our processing and things like that with the back office. And so, on a typical day, a lot of times, like I would just be working upstairs, and I'd be like, let's see what's going on in the showroom, and just go and interact with members. Sometimes I would help out the showroom team, which is really fun, but just, getting a sense of what people want. But I would say what we have learned people want is inventory. People really, like I said, the idea of Vivrelle is you can have it all. And so they want optionality, they want to be heard. And then I also think that, just the relationship between, the customer facing teams and the customer have become so strong, even if you're not in New York City. So we offer virtual showroom appointments. So if you have questions or, are trying to style a specific outfit for travel or, an event, we'll help you with that. Or you can do it all self-service online as well. And so we try to constantly innovate and just listen to our customers and build what they want and help them get cool bags and jewelry. That's really it.
Got it. And you mentioned the showroom, which I think is obviously something unique, and that you have direct access to your customers, which a traditional direct consumer doesn't have. Like, and you're spending time in that showroom. What are some of the things that you've pulled from that showroom experience your customers are having into your digital experience?
Great question. So we actually had a really big product launch last week that I'm still recovering from. But basically, we announced a partnership with Revolve Group and Forward, where on now all of our product pages and within checkout, whenever you're looking at like a Black Prada bag, we will automatically recommend outfit ideas from Revolve and Forward. And if you click through and go on to buy something through that platform from Revolve or Forward, then you can then get back 5% of that purchase in Vivrelle credits. Wow. So that's kind of going back to that like stylist experience that you'll get in the showroom. And I mean, really cool, just because especially Revolve and Forward, those are kind of the 2 really hot brands for that overlap with our customer base. Already on Instagram, we were seeing, constantly being tagged in photos with Revolve and Forward. So that's really exciting for our customers. And then we also have a second part of that launch that's coming up this summer. It's called Ella AI, and it's going to be a virtual assistant chatbot that's going to help you style anything you want. So it'll automatically know what's in your closet. So it'll know that I have this red Chanel 22 and it'll say, okay, Donna, what are you looking for? Are you going to the beach? Or, is it just to run errands? And I'll say, yeah, like, how about whatever, a summer dress that could go with this. And it'll basically be a conversational way to style your Vivrelle products with Revolve and Forward as well. So really excited about that. But yeah, so I'd say those are kind of like the 2 major initiatives that we've been working on just in that vein.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And so those kind of fall into some of the like innovation or the additional like technology things that you're doing. On the inventory side, you mentioned your team, like your brand team stays a lot ahead of the trends and what's coming. How do you guys think about that inventory management part? Because there's also ways that, how do you push out recommendations? I on the site, I have lots of wish lists, but there's also that brand discovery sometimes of like you get anchored in your own brands. How do you guys kind of think about that for whether it's a technology thing, whether it's the stylist? What are the things that you're looking for from, maybe even from a tech perspective to help with that discovery?
Yeah, good question. I would say our marketing team does a really great job at this. We're all over TikTok and Instagram and showing you how to style things. Anytime we bring on a new brand, or especially we have bi-weekly drops now. So every Tuesday and Thursday, we're dropping a lot of items for our members to get. And so we're always giving sneak peeks ahead of drops as well. So we facilitate that on the website. And then, I would say in terms of discovery, we'll have like homepage features anytime we're adding a new brand and really communicating that. But I would say wish list notifications are really the biggest ones. And it's so funny. We have people who have whenever we were doing replatforming, we were like, okay, wish list, not going to be that big of a deal to bring over from the mon list. It'll be totally fine. We saw some people had like thousands and thousands of
Wow.
wish list items, which makes sense. You know, they want to be on top of anytime something gets returned, you're going to be the first person to know. And so we don't only have those bi-weekly drops, we also are getting returns all day, every day. And so I'd say another like listening signal for our customers is that we, you know, can basically see how often people are getting wish list notifications and borrowing items. And we can see if something's a really hot item, and we can send that back to the buying team.
Yeah, that's amazing. Gosh, there's so much to unpack. I feel like we could talk forever, but as we're running up on time, and you've been so gracious with your time, as we close, what's the future of luxury? What do you think, like, as you think about where it's going, the next 5 to 10 years, maybe even in the next 2 years, where do you feel like Vivrelle will continue to evolve?
So interesting, the future of luxury, because right now so much consolidation is happening in the industry. Obviously, we see what's happening with all the multi-retailer brands.
Yeah.
I think customers, especially now online, like we have so much choice in where we can go and, you know, buy this item or now borrow this item. And so it's less about, you know, okay, I want this Prada bag because we have, you know, tens of websites we can get it on. And it's more about, you know, how I want to experience this, or like have that choice be reflected. And so it'll be interesting. And I think people will keep, you know, showing that choice with their wallets and with their dollars. And I know obviously some brands are seeing like sharp declines. For us, you know, we're very lucky to say that we're still seeing a lot of strong demand. So I think we're basically going to keep doing what we're doing. Of course, we have some exciting stuff coming up as well. So we're just going to keep innovating. But yeah, I think a lot of the more traditional luxury retailers, like I'm very curious what's going to happen. But for us, I think we're just in such a different lane, and we've carved out such a different market for ourselves that like it's really exciting. And I think more and more people are recognizing this like circular business model as something that fits really well with their lifestyle. So I think it's going to be beneficial to us in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. I think you actually might get more business as people look at ways to still have that luxury ownership experience, but not necessarily at the same financial commitment. It feels like you have such a bright future, and I hope you stay around selfishly for myself, because there's
Me too. I love the bags.
Yes, exactly. Well, we have learned so much, Donna, and don't go too far, because we get to see your chair dance moves at the end of this thing. So yeah, get the juices flowing and the bones loosened up, joints loosened up.
Sounds good. I'll do my stretching. Thank you both. Yeah. Really fun to talk about.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, next up, we have our intrepid Nick Kaplan come on, talk a little bit about what's going on in the world right now. So that'll be in today's Kaplan's Corner.
The intro just never gets old. So much happiness and joy from that. So little smiles come. Rick and I are always together, and he'll tell you I don't smile that much, but I certainly smile when I see that. So, but I'm back, still being held hostage. So Kaplan held hostage in the corner, part 2, and while there's been a little bit of movement over the last 7 days. Clearly, the markets have liked what they've heard with Trump's talking about a deal or a willingness to make a deal and lower tariffs to China. Although China's taking that hardline approach and saying we don't know much about a deal. But I do think that as we talked last week about operations, and we talked a bit about inventory and kind of kicking off like how to survive this, because look, I think times are tough. Not lost on me about an hour ago, an article coming out. I'm looking to my left at my other monitor. Big brands are officially worried about American shoppers, and you should be too. And so I think that, you know, what I wanted to do today at the challenge from our producer, who always really tries to get the best out of me, like what's hot and what's not. Or as we think about the NFL draft happening this weekend, we can think about tactics we may use to alter our roster to kind of get a little bit better in a moment. And so while have a monitor on Rick to see the blasphemous look in his eyes when I mention one or two of these, here's what I would say I'd be thinking about. So what's hot, what's in, what would I do? So in margin, like focusing on margin, out markdowns. So you're looking at AOV, you're sacrificing conversion right now, and you're taking an opportunity to lean into margin and drop markdowns from your roster, which is a very easy thing to do, and especially in a moment like this. But a little bit counter to that, which I think is going to raise some eyebrows at the moment under these circumstances, especially if you're deep in China, is ROAS. And out for the moment is NCAC. And why do I say that? Because look, there's two weeks of the year, Cyber and Black Friday, really Black Friday and Cyber, where I say ROAS is critical, like efficiency matters. And we are in the age of efficiency, and growth obviously comes from adding new to file and keeping. But right now, you need to invest $1 in revenue that you know will produce the most revenue to manage your inventory effectively in a very, very unknown period. So in ROAS, out for the moment only, maybe the only time I'll say this, NCAC. Replatforming, adios, new tools, goodbye, not for now. MacGyver is in. MacGyver is how to get the most out of what you have, like chewing gum, Band-Aids, paper clips, and really looking internally and not letting your marketing teams, especially having been that person and helping people today not to be those people, do not get enamored with like, wait, I can get a new tool to make it better. You probably can make it better with what you have, and you need to be disciplined today. So all the new tools out, bring MacGyver back on stage. It's the way to be. Awareness and prospecting out, like introductions for the moment, expensive, but engaged in. And what I mean is like, think about it as like, hey, it's nice to meet you, as awareness. Whereas engaged is like, hey, let's make this official. So thinking along those lines, maybe going a bit lower funnel to more relevant customers, maybe even paying more for those people and ensuring that you're converting versus just saying like, I got to go broad and wide. Again, something I won't say often, but I'm saying it today. In directors, out the C-suite. We need like people that can play high and play low. And, I think that's a really important thing. I think the value in certain C-suite positions over time is diminishing, especially in the kind of sub $1 billion companies. I know that people often throw those titles out, but like, no, we're really focusing on empowering directors and managers, by the way, to do and lead and decide. And we're really thinking about like what ultimately long-term for our business is the value of having a really broad, wide C-suite. And last one, out at the moment is affiliate. I know it's an easy conversion, but in is influencer. And why? Because if we're moving into ROAS-driven initiatives and we're thinking about really making our kind of traditional paid media dollars work harder or work better, then I think we need to think about an opportunity to take away like that retail me not honey, all of that stuff, which is really easy conversion, and begin to lean into influencer. And there is a distinction between the two to drive user-generated content, whitelisting, and other things to make us like the best we can be. So that, my friends, is how I would alter my roster, things I would do, tactics I would employ to hopefully get through this quickly. But I will be here, whether I'm invited or not, I will be here to help you through this really crazy turmoil-driven time in Kaplan's Corner until I and you and we are no longer held hostage. And that, my friends, is the corner for the day.
Love it.
That's lots of good things there.
Did you ever hear me think I'd say that?
No, I didn't. I actually, there were a lot of surprising things to unpack. And so it sounds like ROAS in this case is the equivalent to the number of linemen that were picked in the first draft.
Oh.
Yep. And so we opted not to draft Shedeur Sanders and wait till that comes back later. And as a result, it could benefit us.
Sounds like. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Well, it's been an amazing show. Thank you so much, Nick. We are going to sign off, I think, for the weekend. Bring Donna back She's been working on her dance moves. Donna, you were amazing. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Loved how much you said customer. I think that does not always happen a lot, especially from the product lens. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your experience with us. We learned a lot.
This was so fun. Thank you for having me.
Great.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Donna. Thank you to our producers. Thank you to our sponsor, Elastic Path, for Passport, for sponsoring our Headline Hangover. We're ready for our dance party now, so I appreciate everyone in the audience for coming back to us. Subscribe to us on YouTube and on socials and the podcasts and all the things. So again, lovely thank you to Nick giving us wisdom, and of course our guest, Donna Felix.
See you later.
She's a class of friends on Broadway. Shake your tail shot, hear the bird.